really dominating the international press, aren't they, Flo?
That's right. Let's start with the Russian press. It's really interesting to see how they're reacting to everything. We saw, for instance, in the French press that there was a lot of papers were critical of Europe for being hesitant and acting like a coward in the face of Russia. Well, I pulled out an article from Kommersant, which is a Russian business daily, which actually talks about an EU ultimatum to Russia. So a different take on things. And in this article, you can see a photo of the EU foreign policy chief, Catherine Ashton. Now, according to this article, the EU is putting pressure on Russia, saying that if Russia doesn't step up to de-escalate the situation by March 6th, so Thursday, it will be punished. And this article talks about how a visa agreement between Russia and the EU could be jeopardized. Now, I also pulled out an article from the Moscow Times, which is an English language paper, which tends to be more critical of the Kremlin. Now, this article points out that Russia is very much likely to face severe isolation from the international community and sanctions. It could find itself evicted from the G8, for instance. But Putin is not afraid of becoming a global pariah. You can read that in the Moscow Times. This article says that I'm afraid that when I wake up tomorrow, we will find ourselves in a different country. I even know the name of that country, the Soviet Union.
And a lot of focus as well on how Western countries have been reacting to Putin's latest moves.
That's right. Now, in the UK, the government is just trying to figure out how it should react, what its stance should be to de-escalate the situation. Now, I pulled out an article from The Telegraph, which points out that photographers actually managed to capture a photo of an official document. And this is the photo that you can see on The Telegraph's website. This was being carried by an official to a meeting in Downing Street. Now, this document confirms that ministers are considering, along with other EU countries, visa restrictions and travel bans on key Russian figures. But this document actually says that the UK should not support, for now, trade sanctions or close London's financial centre to Russians. So according to this article, this indicates how Britain is actually very concerned about the economic impact of all this. There are fears that the Ukraine crisis could actually derail the global economy, according to this article. And this article points out that this document could actually be a little bit embarrassing for the British government, especially because the Americans are trying to put pressure on Russia and they need their British ally. Now, speaking about how the U.S. is reacting to all this, I pulled out the editorial from The Independent that talks about that. And actually focuses on Barack Obama's foreign policy style. He's been quite cautious recently, and according to this editorial, it's really left the U.S. lagging on events. But you can see here the title. It says, "Take on the baton, Barack." According to this article, the U.S. really needs to lead the way here. None less than the credibility of the U.S. and Barack Obama are on the line.
Something completely different now. Flo's pulled out something from The Independent. It's an interview with the Afghan president, Hamid Karzai.
That's right. This is an interview to mark the end of his presidency. It's an exclusive interview, and according to The Independent, it's actually quite candid and quite emotional. Now, he talks about his regrets at the innocent lives that were lost, but it's also quite defiant. He talks about how America's view of its enemy is all wrong. I don't know if you saw that quote there, but it says that Al-Qaeda is more of a myth than a reality. He says that the war in the U.S. was not actually for Afghanistan. It was in the interest of the West. Quote, "Afghans died in a war that was not our own." So a very interesting interview in The Independent today.
Now, the paper's also continuing to react to this weekend's mass knife attack in southwest China, aren't they?
That's right. I pulled out two articles. One's from The Guardian, which looks at how Chinese officials have been reacting to all this. Now, they've blamed Uyghur separatists in the Xinjiang region for that deadly attack in the Kunming station. Now, you can read here that title that says that Muslims will pay the price. This article points out that Chinese authorities are really going to crack down on the Uyghur minority. But I pulled an article out this time from the Chinese press. This is an editorial in China Daily today that's actually quite critical of the way a lot of the Western media has been covering this event, talking about how they've been rubbing salt into the wounds by talking about China's policy towards the Uyghurs, saying that this is a pretext for them to crack down on it. This editorial says that all this is an insult to the victims' families and to China.
Now, finally, a funny article. She always pulls them out for the end. Slate about the Oscars.
That's right. It's very hard to choose one article about the Oscars. There were so many things to talk about, but this really caught my eye. If you watched the ceremony, you might have seen John Travolta completely mispronouncing the name of a singer. I don't even know how to pronounce her name. There you go. Idina Menza. I know why, Stephen.
Carroll.
Now, why do you like her, Stephen? Well, because she sings a song from your favorite movie you've been telling me about.
Frozen.
Frozen, that's right. Well, you can actually Travoltize your own name in this little widget here on Slate. Now, I did my own. I've been having trouble with the computer, so I'm not sure it's going to work. Mine is Frankie Knight. Stuart, you are Struan Smarnold. And Stephen, I did you two. You're Stephen Crosford. So if John Travolta were here, that's how he would be pronouncing our names.
Excellent. What a fantastic idea. Flo, if I could remember what you were called, I'd call you that. Flo and Stephen, thank you very much to both of you. Coming up, the latest from Ukraine. We'll be hearing from our chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons, in Crimea shortly. We've also a special report in focus today. Is an incredible 815 million people prepared to go to the polls in India. We're talking about education there. That's all coming up in the next half hour.